Texas Monthly.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Viva Tejano, a Texas Monthly podcast about Tejano music told by the people who make it and live it. I'm your host, JB Sauceda. This week I drove to San Antonio to meet the founding members of two of the great South Texas indie and punk bands, Girl in a Coma and Phania. Phanie Diaz and Jenn Alva were friends growing up in San Antonio in the early 2000s when they decided to start a band. They signed on Phanie's younger sister Nina as lead singer and became Girl in a Coma. For the next 12 years or so, they recorded, toured the world, and got to work with their musical heroes like Joan Jett and Morrissey. They built a dedicated fandom, got the whole indie music world looking at San Antonio, and claimed their space in the scene as an all-girl trio. Girl in a Coma broke up in 2018, but by then, Phanie and Jenn were getting on to their new project, a punk outfit called Phania. Along with guitarist Bobby Rivas, Phania features vocals by Leti Martinez, whose lyrics are a mix of English and Spanish. Phania is defiant too. They sing about Chicana pride, queer pride, race, and immigration. And then, last summer, Girl in a Coma reunited with a run of live shows and rumors about a new album. Now, Girl in a Coma and Phania wouldn't typically be defined as Tejano acts, but as you'll hear, they grew up on Tejano music, right at the moment in the 90s when it was big and getting bigger, when young women from South Texas could play a set on the Johnny Canales show and a whole new world would open up. When I sat down with Phanie and Jenn, you'll hear us take a trip back to the Johnny Canales show in 2000. An outdoor show in Nuevo Laredo with Zaida, an 18-year-old rising star from Matamoros who wrote Tejano songs on some very emo subjects like love and loss. Here's my conversation with Phanie Diaz and Jenn Alva. You'll notice that from the moment we were in the studio, we were bonding over the mutual experience of loving and listening to Tejano music in a house where your parents didn't want you to learn Spanish.
My in-laws in particular, they're from the Valley, and so they'll give us a hard time about our kids not knowing it. And my wife and I both are like, well, y'all are the ones that chose not to teach us. You know?
Yeah.
It was like, this is kind of on y'all.
We wrote a song about it.
Yeah, we have a song in Phania. So we have both bands, Girl in a Coma, where we do the Si Una Vez cover, and then Phania, which we started after Girl in a Coma. We have a song called No Hablo Español, but it's about that. It's about the reason why we can't speak Spanish is because it was looked down upon. Like my parents
hold you back.
Yeah, you can't move forward if you're like a minority. That's what they were taught.
And it's ridiculous because it's like another language is just another form of intelligence. Like, why would you think like that? You know what I mean? Like,
but it was a mentality. So I think that's where our generation gap.
It is weird how culturally it felt like there was a shame there, and it was there was this effort to kind of separate themselves in a way, and and I'm not trying to put words in my parents' mouth, but it felt that way in some respect. To like,
it did. I remember when growing up, definitely like.
Sorry,
my mom, all your electronics. It just was a thing of. I remember her telling me that my grandma would be like, if you're gonna, because she wanted to go to college, she wanted to be a lawyer, but growing up in elementary, it was like, don't speak too much Spanish. You'll get in trouble almost. And it was a thing too. I remember in elementary. It's like the Spanish kids all stuck together, the ones that only spoke Spanich, and they were their own group.
There was already separation.
Yeah, and it's weird. And then that's why it was like, we're not going to speak Spanish. It's you're not
like,
supposed
you mean
to.
We can't be friends? Like, that's weird.
But then like, feeling judged about it too is the other side of it. My wife talks about this a lot because she grew up down in Sherryland. Yeah. And she looks Mexicana, and she goes into a place and they're like immediately ready to talk to her in Spanish. And then you kind of have that awkward, sorry, can you say that slower? Or ask them to say it in English, and then you get kind of chastised. So it's a weird middle ground. But I grew up southeast of Houston, so I was like there obviously there were other Tejanos around, but it wasn't as immersive as being like here in San Antonio or the Valley. Right. So I had a little bit of that separation.
Totally. You had no choice, honestly.
Yeah.
Everywhere you went.
Yeah.
So it might not have been like our choice of music at the time anyway, but yeah, it's just mom and dad liked it, and going to flea markets and anywhere really.
It was always the background to everywhere.
I'm going to have you guys just say your name and introduce yourself so that way the listeners know who's speaking. Yeah.
Well, my name is Phanie Diaz, and I'm the drummer for both Phania and Girl in a Coma.
I'm Jenn Alva, and I'm the bass player for Phea and Girl in a Coma.
Awesome. So did you watch Johnny Canales growing up?
Yes, I did. I was real little. I want to say because I was living in the first house that I remember. I must have been like 7 or 8. It was, and my grandparents lived with us. So it was their show. And it's funny because she was showing me somebody else's story about growing up with Johnny. I did the same thing when I heard the music, just dancing around in the living room and hearing the catchphrase, take it away. And, my grandma always wanted to see certain groups that he had on there, and my grandpa. And I remember him walking around like doing the grito to whatever is playing. And yeah, that's my core memory of the show.
What about for you, Jenn?
Yeah, same thing. My mother watching the show. And again, it's a background thing because I don't know, what was I doing being busy? I'm sure I sat down and watched. And it was just a thing to do on the weekends that was always on.
Can I play a clip and get y'all's reactions?
Yeah,
absolutely. For sure. Okay, there's that intro.
Yeah, right about now I would be totally just nodding along with my parents.
Yeah,
pretending to know what's happening.
Watching on the side, and they're all stoked about whoever it is, and I'm just like, whatever's happening. Let's watch this. Everyone's just happy, like, yeah. That's the crowd I want to play in front of all the time.
Yeah. And what a voice, right? I mean,
his or hers?
No, Johnny.
Yeah. You knew it was him. Yeah.
The style of performance is also what sticks out to me too. I mean, all of these old episodes, it's so much more understated than what you're used to seeing on TV now, right?
It's slower too,
Yeah.
I feel like this modern day and age, it's just, everyone's like, what's next, ADD, and this is very slow. He's talking to the musicians, he's interviewing them, even drummer, bass player, what's your name and what's coming up next for
the
y'all?
drummers don't get ignored.
I also like that half the time he was walking around with his notes in his hand. He'd have the big piece of paper, and it's like he was kind of figuring out on the fly.
I could appreciate that, though. He's got all his knowledge there. He knows what's up.
You said that it wasn't like your music of choice, Jenn, when you were growing up.
Right.
How do you feel about it now?
I think what happened, like a lot of people, Phanie and I were best friends in '94, and the tragic news. Of course, we knew Selena. And then suddenly it wasn't like, oh, I'm not pushing away my parents' music anymore. I'm starting to like country, classic country, tejano, and now it's meaning something else.
Understanding your culture as you get older, and instead of trying to shun away from it, you want to learn more about it. And because that's what you do when you grow. You start learning about yourself, and you start embracing where you're coming from.
Right.
So this becomes relevant, and you want to do research about it, like his show and Selena
extremely
music.
relevant. Yeah. And knowing that it was a South Texas thing too, that got picked up, so it got played in Mexico, right? And then, but he's such a hometown guy, I think that's what I liked about watching all those videos was you can easily talk to him.
Like you could, we're just hanging out at the house. We're all drinking and listening to music. It's a good time.
Yeah.
So before y'all got here, Eva Ybarra, who is the queen of accordion, was here.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how hard it was for her with conjunto music to be a female conjunto player.
Yeah.
And which was so interesting to me because my experience watching, and I use the term tejano as a big umbrella, but there were this clip, a lot of women on the stage. And so I always felt like Johnny Canales, the show, and really the genre as a whole, had a lot of women in it. But what was y'all's perspective? Did you feel like it was a man's music or
No.
was it?
Yeah, we were just talking about that because you watch him interview Elsa, Selena, Shelley, it suddenly in a man's world, even music, any genre, suddenly he's declaring you're the queen. So, everybody it just feels a lot more like it feels equality.
Equal.
Yeah.
There was no separation, though I know from hearing stories, because we've done the Tejano Music Awards with our cover of Siuna Vest and stuff, and that it is more male driven. But then again, we started thinking about it, and we're in a punk rock genre, and it's the same thing. We're in an alternative scene, and it's like the women are just a whole other class sometimes. Like we get looked, we walk in a room, it's like, oh, they're not gonna know how to play their stuff. It's already that.
Or just like it's a novelty, you know what I mean?
Yeah, a novelty, being in an all-female band or whatever.
And it didn't feel like that, you know. Yeah. And watching the episodes, specifically Selena, because it's like, you know, she's young, and you just watch her so green, and then suddenly just more confidence in the relationship they had with each other. Which was
she
fun.
made people feel comfortable, which is why you watch that progression through the years of just hanging out and not feeling like I'm at work. I'm hanging out.
So even if it was you know, male-dominated Tejano music, now it doesn't seem like that.
I agree.
I feel like Selena is the brand in some ways, you know, and I say that mostly from an outsider's perspective. Like for people who know nothing about the music, if you ask them like, what is Tejano? They're like, oh, Selena was Tejano, right? That's the first. It's like the entry point, and her music in a way kind of made it palatable to other people who didn't grow up listening to it.
Yeah, because she grew up still having trouble with speaking Spanish, which we all can relate to.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then you just watch the progression, and it's the whole, going back to the whole point of like learning about yourself and embracing it and growing with it. So, yeah.
How do you describe Tejano music to people, or try to explain to people who don't know what it is?
I don't think we get asked about it too often.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I would say it's deriving from different like polka, but to me it's like it's just
punk
like a cooler, you know, country music too. You know, it's just like it's a blend for sure.
Yeah, it's a blend of where you grew up from.
Right.
Like
it's like
you're
explaining
country.
Tex-Mex food. It's like it's hard to explain. It's you know, it's you got to be there.
Yeah.
It is funny to hear you call it like a punk rock polka.
Yeah.
Though, because in talking to Eva Ibarra, she was talking about her music, her conjunto music being progressive. And I asked her, I said, well, why is it progressive? And she said, I use inverted scales and
not following the rules.
Yeah, like just breaking it a little bit, you know? And so, I mean, is that punk to you? Like, is it breaking the rules?
If you're driving from a genre, but you want to make it your own, and there's no rules, you're supposed to follow, like, if you're going to play a certain, we're going to do Tejano music, this is the ABC of how to do it. And it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to add the D, E, F, G to that. I'm going to start experimenting, doing stuff. Then turning it into your own style of music, and that's what makes it.
And that's probably what it needs to stay alive. Is some growth.
You got to keep growing, taking it to a new level and relate with these kiddos that are coming up and trying to blend everything now. You know, I hear country rap and all this stuff, and there's all kinds of things happening. So why not?
How do you all think about that in your genre? I mean, for you, Jen, like what do you think about within punk evolving?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask. I always feel like I'm a poser.
We're always posers.
Or it's not a poser. It's like, because I don't care. You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes it punk, is like, I don't care what, you know, I was some meme I was reading about, like, oh, you're not punk enough, or something, I don't know, something like that. And it's like, okay. You know, I kind of just feel like, you know, we love the music, and it's not necessarily fashion, it's attitude, and just like, you know, I'm going to play what I want, and I don't care what people think, and I think that's what kind of keeps it punk. But as far as evolving, I mean, music has to. It just has to. It can't. It has to blend. Otherwise, it's going to be the same. And
we got to learn from each other.
Right. Or they're going to keep using samples, and it's like, that's kind of like, just write your own music. You know?
Respect the past, but create for the future. You got to do that.
I mean, a few different people have mentioned the importance of like touring to, it's like a feedback loop, like an immediate feedback loop about like what they're writing or what they're working on. And the conjunto artists that I've talked to have talked a lot about like how influential the touring piece of their career was on both how their music was written and the communities that they built that like would help support their music. Do you feel the same way about touring? Is it 100%. Like the critical thing?
We are touring advocates. Not only because being in Girl in Coma and Fea, being Latinas, and in Fea, Letty's has Spanish songs, we're like teaching and spreading it and playing in like North Carolina, where they don't hear too much of this kind of style. And we always made it a point to say we are from San Antonio, Texas, you know. And even in Fea, with Letty speaking in Spanish, we've had people come up. what is she speaking, Italian? And it's like, no, let's teach you what's going on here, you know. But that's good. It's
Right.
it's
Or
education.
even our name, Fea, it's like we get fee, we get FEA so much.
And then we get to teach them what fea means.
Right.
You know?
And in a
So-
sense, they probably feel like, okay, cool. Like, I like them even more because now it's mine and I know.
And I discovered this.
right.
But vice versa, you learn.
But touring is, for now, hopefully, it's something that cannot be replaced. It's not like AI can come in and.
Yeah, that's where you show your true talent. You
Right.
can't hide behind a computer. You know, you have to go out there and show them what you're capable of
Right.
doing.
And it's a lot of learning too, because in Fea we have new songs, so we're trying to see what this new crowd like. Did they like it? Like, you know, or do we need to make some changes? It's kind of it helps us to like see with pre-production and recording and everything, and of course relationships. And touring's not for everybody. You'll see bands like. I'm
Hate
fine
it.
with just doing YouTube and if that works for them, cool. But I feel like you cannot replace touring. You just can't. It's
you
something
got to
very
build that
special.
relationship with the audience. You got to see your audience, you know, and learn from them.
Are there different audiences? Like, are they distinct between Fea and Girl in a Coma, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so.
in what
say-
ways?
I mean, Fea is just more hard hitting punk, right? Girl stuff. So we see more of the feminists come out and punk rock fans.
I think a lot of older punks too, like
Yeah,
guys,
older
because they
punks.
get it. I think they get what we're doing.
Ya no me quedan muchas opciones, no tengo nada que empeñar. Me faltan horas, no tengo tiempo, y se me olvida respirar. Pues ya ni modo, así es la vida, como me gusta batallar. Y justifico, me voy de compras, busco manera de escapar.
And Grown Coma was just a mix of everyone. I think just,
Girl in Coma feels like homegirls. They see us, they see our image, and I think that was what was special about Girl
Yeah,
in
because
Coma.
we're not these Barbie cut girls. You know, we
Yeah.
are who we are. We're from Texas, and we always showcase. We were proud of that.
Hurry, I'm making me rock back and forth inside my lonely boat. Everyone will try to stop what they know they cannot control. And it's like on the other side, and it's
I think a lot of people related with that and see us doing something and breaking barriers, and it's like we could do it too, kind of mentality.
Right. And now we're getting that too, because I mean, we're 44, right?
Yeah. Right? Are we?
Are we?
Yeah.
So we're getting, like, like my mom liked you guys, and I used to listen to you when I was 8, and
Now I'm here with my kiddo. I'm like, oh my God, how
Yeah,
long
that's
have we been
crazy.
together?
Yeah.
But cool.
Yeah,
That's why we got
great.
back together. We had broken up for a couple of years, and we had reunion shows, which ended up being the restart of us. And there were finale shows, and we saw people fly out from all over the country.
Wow.
And give us these stories, and we were like, well, I
what are
guess
we doing?
still
Let's just get back together.
yeah, I guess we still have gas, so let's do this.
Yeah.
And we had a talk, and now here we are again.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about, I think at first coming into the 40s, because that's a whole new world, I think Phanie and I would kind of get zapped, like, oh, what? What do you mean? And it's like, wait, we're older. This is something to accept and grow into instead of
Be
like
proud of.
be sad that
oh,
you're
we're
getting
ladies.
older. But it's different for women too in music. It's I think about a band like the Linda Lindas, who are they had started younger, 17, 18, something like that.
No, 13.
Really?
12, 13.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's like for women, ladies that young to start, and I'm seeing them turn now into, you're right, into like 18.
Ladies. But that's what happened to
I'm
Nina.
scared for them because it's like there's so many higher standards for like women. It's like, oh,
We
you
get
were
picked on
you were
more for
younger
how
and
we
you were
look.
cute, right? And now you're not
getting older
younger.
and you look weird. It's the
Yeah.
stupidest things that we read or comments. As not that a male gets. A guy can roll out of bed and show up and play indie rock, and then if we did the same thing, it's like, oh man, she's letting herself go, or she must be on something.
Right.
Just because we didn't feel like putting on eyeliner today or whatever.
How did y'all manage that?
It sucks to read, but at the same time, it became our fuel, and that's why we called the band Fea after
Right.
that. We tried to turn ugly girl into this rock positive thing of like,
Cool.
Right.
you know,
yeah,
so we're
'cause it's
fea,
like if
so what?
You
know?
could predict any negative comments. And if you can predict it, then it becomes harmless. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, original, way cool. So,
Right. Way to go, dude.
yeah.
Not telling us anything new. Yeah.
And so, like, that's, you know, our fans are awesome and genuine and appreciate the music and maybe our character too.
Hush, I just play dumb. You are waiting, are you waiting for my sign? Slip away now, but our lips are deep in the ground.
Now, what about San Antonio? I'm constantly intrigued by San Antonio because I feel like it's not trying to be cool, but it's easily one of the coolest cities I've ever been to. I love San Antonio.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up here, but we spent a lot of time visiting, and I don't even really know how to explain it, but there's something about it that everything it does, it feels like it does right.
Or nerdy
and
cool.
Nerdy cool? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's just nerdy cool.
Why is that? What is it about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's our culture. I mean, I think it's because we are that melting pot.
I always say you see a guy that like he's into Slayer, but he's wearing a Morrissey shirt. We take everything in and we make it our own, and
Right.
we have
great
these hidden
art.
gems.
We have like not just musicians, but artists that are just incredible, you know, doing big things, being in national museums. And yeah, we have great artists, great food. It really is a great city.
I mean, but you made a point to say, I think you, Phanie, said like anywhere we go, we're from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Why do you all feel so passionate about it for yourself?
Just
Is it for that
We've
reason?
always advocated for that because of the fact that Girl in a Coma had that beautiful growing fan base.
the community was just always great,
Right.
and the support was always great.
What are the aspects of touring and live performance that you were happy to leave behind, and what are the parts that you hope come back?
Well, the lifestyle is crazy because you're going into the late nights, and there's a lot of bad things around you, and you can pick and choose what path you're going to go down. And just learning like how to take care of yourself mentally and physically when you're out there versus
Totally.
like
because
eating
now
Taco
we
Bell
know,
every
right?
day.
We're woke, and I know that I have really terrible ADHD, so that explains a lot for Phanie, who doesn't.
I get it now.
You know, getting after you didn't read the email. No, I just kind of went through it real quick, you know, and I would get in trouble all the time. Or your time management sucks, Jen, and we've got to do this, we got to do
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, there's a reason, and we'll work on it, and thank God for that. Like, you know, this new knowledge, right? Because
But all of that
tired
is-
of getting in trouble. all
That's the hard part. That's the hard part. Of
You
touring.
messed up on stage. Well, my brain floated. You know, it's hard.
It is funny like how many people discount how much basically a band is running a business, and the people dynamic. It's like with all that Oasis reuniting stuff. It's like, why haven't they just like buried the hatchet? I'm like, man, they
There's a
already
lot
didn't
to
get
come with
along,
it.
and then
Yeah.
you cram them together
Right.
in high stress environments for a long time.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
the
you
person
gotta
behind
get
Are
it
used
will-
you
to
and
it.
Nina the
brothers?
Mexican
We might be-
Oasis?
we declare we are the Mexican. No.
Yeah, they took our thunder too. It's like, oh, we reunited. Oh, Oasis. Thank you.
But you know, it's true. You have to ease back into that if you haven't been together or you haven't been touring. You have to put your toes in the water. That's why we're taking these local shows first, and then we're doing our first tour in over 10 years
Right.
in January, going to the West Coast, which we announced tomorrow.
And I was just thinking, because Nina, Girl in a Coma, her too, lots of therapy, lots of lingo like that we're using now, modern lingo, to communicate, which is very helpful and mend our relationship, because back then it's like you couldn't say exactly, everything just felt like we're agitated with each other. We've been together too long, and I feel like there's a lot of modern.
now we can talk about
I
it's
need
like,
mental break. Can you just, I'm going to turn off my phone. Cool. You're fine. You know.
I don't want to talk right now. I'm going to walk away. Yeah, it was we were on the go so much, and you know, things caught up with my sister and starting so young, and she missed out on a lot. And yeah, we were just working and we were pissing each other off.
Right.
And we couldn't work together. We just kind of couldn't write. There was a lot of things that were happening.
She really wanted to try new music, and we were a little bit opposed to it.
I think she needed to learn. She needed growth for herself,
right?
Because she started at 12, and she never had that moment. She was always around us too, or the business, you know, was all around her.
Phani's like a manager, so she's like, go, go, go. No, your voice kind of, just drink tea. Your voice hurts, just drink tea. Like, we got to go, go, go. Yeah.
But I learned about that, you know, as we got older, like that wasn't
like
the right
we can cancel
way to
Phanie.
go.
It's okay sometimes.
It's okay not to play this show. It's fine.
Was there ever concern, you know, when y'all broke up that you wouldn't be able to, you know, capitalize on getting back together, or that the next thing wouldn't work? Was there ever
there was a fear because
I didn't think we were actually. I thought, you know, now I have kids, stepkids, and I'm like, oh, I wish they could see Girl in Coma. I wish they could see the crowds and see what mom did, mom number 2. And I just thought, oh, it's not going to happen. We weren't even really talking with Nina and their sisters. You know, it's kind of, you were a little bit.
We are Oasis. Reality.
You know, and it wasn't until we did the final shows and we could see the beauty and the evolution of the audience. And and now it just seems like we're all in a good headspace. We can do this. It's hard to be
We
a
wouldn't
band,
have done
you know?
this if we didn't think we could.
When we first started with Girl in a Coma, Kenny Laguna, in charge of our label, I asked a naive question like, you know, will we be famous, you think? And he was like, yeah, just stay together. Yeah. I mean, it was as simple as that. And I was like,
stay together.
Okay, thanks for that
it's
advice.
It's such a simple
Wow.
thing, and we were like, duh. But then it's like, oh God, that was the hardest thing to do.
Right, yeah, totally. So.
Yeah. Was there a period that you look back on that you feel like everything was just hitting in the right way?
There's a lot of moments. They're opening up for our heroes. You know, we're called Girl in a Coma. It's a Smith song, and then we went on tour with Morrissey. Mm-hmm. And you know,
we did Late Night with Carson Daly. That was our only national TV that we did, but it was
Carson
really
Daly
cool.
Show.
Yeah, I wish we could. It always seems like there's little problems at the moment that, you know, you're focusing on and fixating, and it's like, but looking back, of course, you're like, wow, that was really cool. Like we did a lot of cool stuff.
Did y'all benefit from the kind of celebrity fandom of Girl in a Coma? Like, do you feel like that y'all were more a product of the kind of small venue kind of build up, or were there moments where there were like getting to go on tour with Morrissey that kind of really blew you guys up? Where, you know?
I think we're more that we worked really hard to get there, and instead of it benefiting off of touring, because Morrissey crowd they were rough. They had another artist, Christine Young, and they would just boo her and heckle her every day. So when we had first jumped on the tour in New York City, he fired her and then asked us to come. And
which was awesome. We got the news. We were getting ready for our own show in New York and already kind of stressing out, parking, and is anybody going to come to the show? And suddenly we get this phone call from Boz. Hey, we fired our opening act. Do you guys want to open?
Come tonight.
We're like, okay.
Alrighty. So
let's cancel our show, and just like freaked out.
From a 200
like
cap
positively
venue.
freaked out.
Yeah.
Right?
Positive, but
6,000
also like,
cap
oh my
venue.
God, Morrissey crowd, they're gonna eat us up alive. But no, they liked us.
Yeah, I mean, you had to work, even going on tour with bands like that, because we went with like Social D, the Go-Go's, Sia. You had to like
before Sia blew up.
We went on
that
tour
was
with her.
great. Yeah, that tour was awesome.
But you had to work that too, because they want to see the headliner, so you had to charm that audience. So we definitely came from hard work.
That was our boot camp, and especially going into FEA, because FEA was fortunate to also open up for heroes like Babes in Toyland, Laura Jane, Grace, Against Me. So we already had that like, okay, and you know, we didn't want to be the band that was like annoying them. We usually leave them alone unless they come to us. And
we'd stay away. I remember when we toured with Tegan and Sarah, and they're like, "Do you know you guys can come out of the dressing room and hang out?
You can
and
talk to
Are
us.
you sure?
Know?
Like,
we're like, we
scared
just
of
got off the
everybody.
Morrissey tour. No, we're
Yeah,
just kind of used to that. Yeah, hiding.
Do y'all still feel like outsiders? Do you feel like you're subversive or trying to kind of break into anything at this point, or
I mean, I think so. I think we're just going to always look at ourselves as outsiders and geeks and not cool enough to be with this crowd,
Right.
even though they're our friends.
Yeah.
We're just always admiring and grateful, and we just always have that, we got to work hard. Even though the audience likes us or it's our show,
Right.
we still got to work hard. We
You
still
have
want
to
to
be
do
hard
good
on
for them.
yourself and humble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't see it any other way.
In another interview, we were talking about really just how much more pervasive it feels like the Spanish language is in music more broadly. That the fact that one of what felt like the most viral moments for me was watching Grupo Frontera like play at Coachella with Bad Bunny, and then Bad Bunny, in himself is like this huge movement, hosting Saturday Night Live. I mean, I feel like Tejano played a role in some ways with this, but
absolutely,
what is that? Where do you see
maybe
it
it's
coming from?
it's the whole thing of like earlier talking about going back to your culture and learning your roots and then trying to incorporate it. So I think because as we're getting older, I think the new generation is now not ashamed to know who they are. So they're quick to now already bring on samples of old songs and collaborate with older artists.
But it takes a leader, right? So it's like Bad Bunny had created a following, very proud, always talking about Puerto Rico, right? And just, hometown. But it's the fact that the leaders, they make it cool to where someone that doesn't speak Spanish is trying to sing along to one of his songs. So, I mean, you can't knock that. I love that Letty doesn't, when we write, it's not like she's, we're going to write a Spanish song. It just naturally comes to her where it's a Spanish song. Plus, she loves language. So we have a song with 5 languages where she's just,
French, Japanese. Cool. She uses it all in one song. We have a song called Feminazi, and she says, I'm a feminist in 5 different languages.
I took over this TV show, Texas Country Reporter, and it was interesting because a lot of people really wanted to make it about like, oh, you're the first Tejano. I mean, there have only been like 4 hosts in all 50 years.
Right.
But they were like, you're the first Tejano, host. What does that mean? And it means a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
But I also wasn't trying to make it be the only thing that I was kind of seen as like, oh, well, he's doing well because of this.
Right.
And, or that is the kind of like one line sub kind of plot to my success or whatever. Do y'all feel that way at all about being Latina? Like, is it something that you'd love to hang your hat on? Is it something that you're kind of like...
We embrace on it for sure. But I think it's also smart on our part, not necessarily race, but like to enjoy the benefits of the different, like we don't want to be like, oh, we're a novelty because we're all women, but we will take advantage of the fact that we are like singled out into this, not necessarily genre, but like, yeah, we have to take advantage of it because it puts us by ourselves sometimes.
People
where we
are
can
curious
stand out.
because it's something else that they're unfamiliar with.
Right.
So you take that opportunity to, I just always go back to educate. Like that's where my head goes, like teach.
Right. Plus, it's like a quantity thing too. So it's like for the Tejano bands, all the guys, they had the look, they matched. They look really cool, but there was a lot of them, and you really had to love the music to know that this is like Las Sombras, and this is this band, and this is this band. But like, if you're already standing out because you are, a woman, and it's like, yeah, we'll take advantage of it because we need to get out there. It's you have to have that mentality of like, we got to get our music out there. And if this helps, then cool. Because, I mean, I was thinking, it's like in both bands, Phanie and Girl in Coma, what it's all about is passing the torch. We're passing it to other younger women.
We see that when the moms bring their little girls and like, oh, she's trying to be a drummer. And then my head's like, here's my sticks. Like, keep it up. So they can remember that moment and want to. So, because
that's what happened to us.
That's what happened to us. We went to a show at Sunken Gardens here in San Antonio, and it was Babes in Toyland. We hadn't started a band or anything. We loved music. We're sharing music. But we saw them, and we saw like how in charge they were of the stage.
They only played like 6 songs.
They played 6 songs. They got upset because a guy was groping a girl
in the audience.
Yeah, and she was like, if you don't stop that, we're going to stop.
Whoa.
And she did. And we were like,
wow.
Yeah. we got to do this. We need that power.
Like they're in charge
incredible.
and they rock. And we went to see White Zombie, and it's like, I couldn't tell you anything about that
remember
show.
that. We remember
We
them.
like ran to the bus stop. Oh no, we ran to the gas station because we were like in the front. So we got a gallon of water. We were like sharing it back and forth, and we were like, we gotta start a
Making
band.
plans.
Like,
Yeah.
and it, your mom picked us up. We're in the back seat. We're like, okay, we need to find a drummer, and we were already making plans.
Yeah.
It was just like that was it.
But that's what's important. Like you want those moments, and we see that all the time especially when it's younger kids that
Right.
are aspiring to be
And we look like
in our
them.
position. It's like I can do this. I don't have to look like these cookie cutter skinny girls on TV. I can be her
Right.
and still do it. So yeah.
It is interesting how much more I feel like kids in particular feel empowered to talk about that and just like, hey, why don't I see somebody
Yeah.
that's like this, or why do I, or whatever. I feel like there was a little bit of a keeping of the peace for a long time that people just didn't kind of speak up about not seeing something that was
They
similar
just
to them or
they're
whatever.
scared to, and it's like the whole thing with Spanish language and scared to embrace that but that's what also goes back to the Johnny Canale show of like how he made everybody feel equal. Like that's what needs to happen
Right.
is instead of treating it like, oh, it's a woman, it's too weak to not
Or
part of
all
this
in Spanish
part of
because
this
there was a lot of
gang.
Spanglish
He would
on the
speak it,
show.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
was like, oh, you kind of sound like my family. They
Yeah.
go back and forth, and that was familiar.
You have to just to look at it like it's the same thing. Like talk about it like it's no big deal, not a separate genre. It's like we're all together.
Yo, sé que un día tú volverás y tú.
All right. That was my conversation with Phanie Diaz and Jenn Alva. Thanks so much to them for joining me in the studio, and thanks to Harder Music in San Antonio for the recording. I'll be back next week with an interview with El Dusty, the DJ and producer who's helped lead the revitalization and reimagination of cumbia music, all while creating a space for a music community in his hometown of Corpus Christi. Viva Tejano is a Texas monthly podcast hosted by me, JB Salceda. Our executive producer is Megan Kreit. The show is produced by Ella Kapakin and Patrick Michaels and produced and engineered by Brian Standifer. Additional production by Aisling Ayers. Consulting producer is Adrian Arredondo. A huge thanks to our partners, Mirna Perez and Adrian Arredondo, for access to the Johnny Canales Show archives. Keep an eye out for the upcoming documentary, Take It Away, which chronicles the rise and fall of Tejano Hollywood. Artwork is by Jen Hare Tompkins and Victoria Milner. Thank you all for listening. Adios.